amazing. We got Darshan Kulkarni, the man, the myth, the legend, with the very nice sweater.
I
I
know.
gotta say, what is
Just
that?
don't look at my pants.
Don't look at the
PJs.
pants. It's okay. Yeah. Well, yesterday I was wearing a suit and vest and a tie with jeans underneath because we only filmed from the waist up.
Exactly.
Me and Dr. Joe. We got into aspartame,
Oh,
NutraSweet CEO, basically writing articles back in the 80s. Yeah, like a lot of interesting things. You would actually probably like that channel, although you would disagree with half of it, but still, I think you
uh,
would disagree with half. Maybe not.
well, we can talk about the clinical research stuff from Jill Biden because they just had a meeting about it,
Yeah.
a conference about it. We can also talk about do seed oils cause cancer?
Well, now you're discussing the exact episode of the Dr. Joe show.
Because that was hot right now. That's actually hot that
Yeah.
came up.
Well, and he has evidence, like he comes with evidence on these podcasts of tons of evidence that they do. But I always want to know your opinion on that.
Uh, so I actually just put out a podcast. I don't know if it's come out yet, but it's going to come out. So I guess everyone's going to see a preview because it is the Dan Sfera show, and you do previews of your own podcast on here. But, uh, but I think the takeaway is that the quantities we're talking about, it's not a real issue in someone's house. Large quantities, it may absolutely be a carcinogen, but no one's using it. Those
What
large
about daily chronic use? Like that doesn't matter?
not from what again I haven't read all the studies, but to the
Mm.
extent I've sort of digested them.
Okay.
And again, not medical advice or legal advice, but generally speaking, it's just not going to be enough. Really,
I'll send you Dr. Joe show after this.
his take is different.
Very different. Yeah.
Interesting.
And you know what's interesting? Not just him, but a lot of doctors I talk to.
Yeah.
So, I mean, this gets into the science versus scientism debate, and it's a can of worms.
Yeah.
But when you reach, and this is kind of what I don't agree with all aspects of MAHA or RFK. I mean,
Yeah.
we're not binary people. I think we're quantum superposition. We should be superposition. At least our minds should be.
Uh-huh.
I promise we won't do philosophy right now. But
No, that's okay. Fine. Keep going.
okay, so a lot of doctors are afraid to, like, I keep thinking about the last pod where you say, well, RFK is not qualified. RFK,
Uh-huh.
he's not qualified.
Mhm.
I know personally dozens of doctors that are qualified
Then I'm happy to hear their opinion.
but have similar opinions to him.
Totally.
Not all.
No, that's fine.
But here's the issue, Darshan.
Mhm.
They won't go on to talk about it because they say, well, no, I could risk, my board certification. Like we've reached a point where it's not okay to have different opinions from the orthodoxy. And that's a religion at that point. It's not science.
So I think I agree with you that science should survive challenges.
And these
There's
are smart
absolutely
people that are afraid to talk, but they'll talk one on one all day long. They'll talk with patients.
Let me ask you a different version of that question.
Yeah.
At what point does an opinion become a single person's opinion or 15 people's opinion become enough to challenge an orthodoxy?
Well, you said it yourself. Not everyone's opinion should be valued the same, but these are educated people in the field.
So I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm actually asking the question. So I 100%. So I'm going to say a couple of things. So number one, I think people who have opinions, whether or not you are qualified, should be still allowed to have opinions. Just because you're not qualified doesn't mean you can't have an opinion. But the weight I give your opinion differs.
Right.
Then let's assume that someone is appropriately qualified. Yes, but you can still be appropriately qualified and not have done the research. I'd be one of those people right now. For example, around seed oils. Haven't done my research enough. I can have an opinion, but it's an uninformed opinion. Then you have that next level of someone who is qualified and has an informed opinion and is still wrong.
Right.
But
the crazy thing about this is that there's this book written in the 60s called How to Lie with Statistics.
Oh, yeah.
I think everyone should read it. It's like a quick read.
Right.
I'd keep it on my desk at work. And So I showed a few of these doctors, not Dr. Joe, but a few of them, this chart about vaccines, and then like they had polio, hepatitis, MMR, a few of the like big ones, the old school ones, right? A line, and I put in one of my LinkedIn posts, a line of vaccine introduced, and then afterwards the prevalence of disease like completely gone or almost gone, right? So that shows right there those vaccines are good. But if you look like at micro lines, and this is my pro-vaccine stance, by the way, guys. If you look at the micro lines, like there are some incidences where like polio vaccine was introduced, and in some cases, like they actually had an increase in polio just for a little bit of time. But a macro, like if you zoom out enough, it basically worked, like it's gone. But if you just focus on those little parts, you can make the narrative, oh well, polio vaccine was introduced and there was a spike in polio. Like, why do we need that? So you can lie with statistics no matter which side you want to argue. You know better than anyone as an attorney.
Yeah, there are lies. There's damn lies, and then there's statistics. That
Correct.
So I'm agreeing with you 100%, and that's why the FDA tends to be very, very cautious about the types of
Mhm.
statistical tests you run, because
Right.
they go, well, that's not like you can make if you torture the statistics hard enough, you'll get to confess to anything you wanted to confess to.
Mhm.
So I generally agree with that. So my point is, when you said that there are doctors who don't want to speak, to
Afraid
me,
to speak.
to me, the question is, we talk about three levels, right? One is you're uninformed. Second is you're informed but unqualified. Third is you're informed, you're qualified, but you're wrong. But the fourth one is hold on, I'm trying to read Helen's. When they can provide the science to back up their opinion. So far, those who shared, they don't have the science to back it up. And that's part of the question, right? There actually is significant amounts of science that says that they're wrong.
Volumes, yeah. But
So
the critic, because I push back on this too. The critics tend to come back with, well, they've never done placebo-controlled trials. And then I argue, well, in some cases they do, but it's considered unethical to give placebo. Like, let's say you're doing a vaccine study on kids, right? It's a RSV
yeah,
vaccine. Like, it's considered unethical by the IRBs
right,
to give
right,
placebo, right? But then you get into like flu vaccines,
yeah.
COVID. I know some of the COVID ones had placebo controlled. So, like, this narrative that the vaccines were not tested under placebo controlled randomized trials is not entirely true. Some of
But
them
why
were not,
do you need that? First of all, I'm confused. Why the placebo part matters?
because they consider that the gold standard of
That's not
science.
true.
Well, that's what they say.
No, you just have to. You have to have the statistics actually back it up. You just then go. You need more people. The people will
Or
justify
you
it.
need standard of care, like compare it to
Correct. Be
like
against
the
standard of
current
care
standard of
usually at
care.
that point.
Yeah, but the argument is, well, the standard of care is just another vaccine that went through the same process. So like they can argue this
But then
forever,
it'd be a
right?
placebo. If they're saying the vaccine doesn't work and the standard of
Right.
care went through the same process, aren't they basically saying it's a placebo? In which case, you met your own standard.
Right. So the argument has to have like a ground zero somewhere, and this
Right.
is like back to the philosophical thing of, oh, the earth, the earth is suspended on the universe. Well, no, and then someone says that's false. It stands on a turtle.
Right.
And they
Right.
say, okay, well, what's underneath the turtle? Oh, it's turtles all the way down. Like the argument breaks down at some point. Like you have
Right.
to have a baseline. And
Right.
this is where I think people don't, because they're the truth's somewhere like maybe not exactly in the middle. That's a cliche. But if there's two extremes, the truth is there's some truth to both extremes, but the real truth that we're all trying to get at, because science is evolving, is somewhere closer to what we have, but it's not perfect, the system that we currently have. And I think that's where a lot of the pushback comes from. Like, well, you're forcing something on us that's not perfect, and you're silencing us.
But
And
nothing's perfect.
I know.
And no, I'm not saying you're disagreeing with me. I'm actually saying that the people who are saying that, I hear you. The question is, at what point, and I'm genuinely asking this question, at what point do the rights of a society exceed the right of an individual? And I don't know the answer to that question. But if the rights of a society to be safe
Hmm.
include you having to get a vaccine. Is
Right.
that a bad thing? And I'm not sure it isn't necessarily is or isn't.
Right.
But
And I'm
I
not
would
sure of
argue,
an
I
answer.
personally come from the position that it's okay for society to demand that of you because the risk is so low. Now,
Correct. If you have a society where corruption is not running amok,
sure, I'll give
because
you
that
that.
could be abused, and that's where
Absolutely.
I think the pushback comes from, and it's not all entirely unfounded.
But is it being abused in this context? I'm not saying that it doesn't get abused in general, but in this
Well,
context, is there reason to believe that it was
they
abused?
point they'll point to the vaccine schedule for kids, and see this very conversation we have. Well,
Mhm.
you have licenses, so I don't know if you're comfortable with it. Not medical or legal advice, by the way.
Right. I
I've
have
got nothing to lose
at the
except
bottom.
some sponsors say, "Oh, this guy in a hoodie, don't give him a study." I don't care. I've already been told that many times. Whatever. But like
I'm sorry.
doctors,
Did they literally have a slogan? This guy in a hoodie, don't give him a study.
n- I've
It
heard
works.
things from one sponsor
Really
recently.
interesting.
Yeah, but it's okay. We got enough friends. We got enough friends of the pod where we're good.
And
Um,
plus, the people come to SOS.
the SOS is a movement. It's not just me.
I know.
Latinos in clinical research is a movement. It's not just me.
Oh, I know.
Yeah, you can't
My
cancel
point is
all
that
of us.
people love it. They
Yeah,
love Dan Sfera. They love Brad. They love Latinos in clinical research. It's
yeah.
it's it
They
shows.
love Kulkarni Nation.
Ooh, I like that. I've been coming up. I've been trying to work on a name, Kulkarni Nation.
I like it.
Ooh, like Guru Nation. You know what? I might have to work on that one.
I forgot what I was talking about, but oh, the vaccine schedule for kids. So we went from like what like if you want to, you may know the stats off the top of your head, but like
I do not.
eight eight or so shots in the 80s
Something
to
like that. Yeah.
87 today.
Yeah.
At what point
Is it
and how
87 really?
soon? Yeah, like at what point and how early is it too much for a kid? And that's a that's not as harm to society.
It is though. Why would you say it's not?
So giving like Hep B to infants,
So Hep B
until,
maybe not, but like something like
but that's on the
RSV.
schedule. That's
No, I know,
so
but RSV, for example.
right. But my point is, it's not those two things. It's just you can abuse that and say, okay, we got
Sure.
regulators to say yes. Let's go crazy with it now. Let's go
No,
160 shots.
sure. Um, let's take that. Let's play that. First of all, I think I'm not sure I agree with Helen's last point. While I want to agree, I'm not sure I necessarily agree. Um,
You technically
you
accept your
tacitly
responsibility.
accept your
Yes,
responsibility to protect.
I agree with you, the individual. I don't agree with the nanny state because that turns into something else. That turns into if you delegate that to the state, that becomes something else.
Yeah, I would love to say yes because I think it speaks to a responsible society to say that. But I
You as
think
an
that
individual, yes, you should.
you should. But is it your responsibility? Is a different question.
That's a personal thing for everyone. But
That's my
there's
point.
enough
Personal
people
opinion.
that would say yes.
Right.
But once you delegate that to government and say, I don't want to think about this, let them take care of it, that has the potential to turn into something totalitarian.
It's kind of similar for those people who are GOP or Republican, if you will. Should you pay more in taxes because you tacitly accept a responsibility to protect the more vulnerable members of that
Right.
society? So
Or
it
should
goes
you
down that
be
pathway.
or should you be allowed instead or incentivized instead to create another business to where you're helping society by creating more jobs, more value,
Sure.
as opposed to giving it to government who's
Yeah.
great at spending it.
Yeah.
And when they say they're going to reduce homelessness, their incentive is not to reduce the numbers of homeless people because that means they can't hire more people in that department and get more funding next year. So, like, you
Yeah.
got pretty skewed incentives at those bureaucratic levels. But at
Yeah.
the entrepreneurial level, you don't have skewed incentives. Like, you eat what you catch, and you need more people working for you to catch more. So, that's a better, more efficient allocation of your capital.
Yeah.
How did this podcast turn into business philosophy, man? I
I
guess we're
don't
switching.
even know what topic we were starting with.
Well,
Uh,
you want to get into the shooter. I feel like doctors should not feel like if they make a YouTube video, that they're
Yeah.
gonna lose their board certification. I think that's
Let
kind of
me ask you
crazy.
this: should they still be so let's say there's a doctor who says that silver colloids will prevent COVID. And they have that opinion. Whether or not they're right or wrong, that's their opinion.
Hmm.
Um, and evidence doesn't bear that out. The reason I'm asking this question is someone actually said that. There was actually, I think it was a pastor who came out and said that silver colloids prevent COVID, and the Justice Department took him down. But my point would be in those scenarios, at what point is a doctor going from having an opinion to malpractice?
Yeah.
And that's my question.
I don't know. I guess we're finding it. I guess we're finding out in individual cases. But like, at what point do pharmaceutical companies go from creating treatments to just causing more issues? Like, it's the same question, really.
But I think that there is a check and balance to that, right? The FDA looks at that data and says, yay, nay, maybe so. What is the check on doctors? Lawyers? I can tell you the lawyer, I'm not that great at check.
Yeah, like watchdogs. I don't know.
And that's my point. I think you need a better check on the system. If there was a check on the system, maybe. And to that point, isn't that exactly what
I think if there's economics involved, right? Like if that doctor says it and not selling anything or not getting paid for it, like that's an opinion. But if he also has
but if he now starts an ivermectin clinic because
now it's become an economic. Now it's marketing. Now it's marketing.
Exactly.
That should be held under marketing laws. But we're not talking about commerce. We're talking about just debate. Good old fashioned debate.
So just to be clear.
Yeah.
You're getting into my world right now. I'm loving it. So
that's why you're on, man.
There is a distinction between marketing and scientific discussion. So this comes up all the time. I've literally written the book chapter on marketing versus scientific discussion.
Where's that book? How do we buy it?
No, you believe me, you don't want to buy it. It's way too freaking expensive.
It's like $500.
I don't get $1 out of this, just to be clear, but it's a great sort of distinction to draw. And the impact of that was multi-billion-dollar fines, just to be clear. But the big point here is that if a doctor wants to speak to another doctor and say, let's have a discussion about the role of ivermectin to see if vaccines work or whatever that is,
right?
No one is allowed to challenge that. Let's illegal.
Have a debate. Let's put it on YouTube.
Yep. Absolutely okay to do. Moment you take that exact same thing and say, and now you use that to market it in your clinic, or you use that to say, come to my clinic to get access to ivermectin. That's now gone to marketing. There are two different standards of review. At one point, one is First Amendment. Scientists have that discussion. That's exactly how science advances. Second one is marketing. The government is allowed to impose reasonable restrictions because, to your point, there's a vested interest.
I agree with that. I agree with that level of regulation.
But that's exactly what the Board of Medicine is doing at that point, right? They're saying, are you engaged in medicine or are you engaged in marketing?
No, so these guys are afraid to speak out. Just they don't have anything.
Speak out where? The context matters, right?
On YouTube, like we're doing right now.
But now, if you and I were doing this, but we were saying, come check out the Kulkarni law firm or the Kulkarni pharmacy because I'll dispense ivermectin.
Right. No, these guys work for other clinic. Like they don't have anything to sell. They just W-2s. They just want to talk. They want to have like one-on-many conversations instead of one-on-one.
See, one-on-many is not a scientific discussion anymore. It's marketing at that point.
No, but one-on-one with you, but like many people watching later.
But that's the question. So it's not scientific discussion anymore because you're really doing it for marketing. That's the distinction.
Well, not all podcasts are marketing. Like
I don't know about you, but I do podcasting for marketing. I know most people do.
Yeah, but the ones like let's the ones where people are just shooting the shit, you know.
Even that's marketing. You're still shooting the shit for your own reputation.
I suppose so. I mean, I guess creating authority no matter what, even if you don't have something to sell presently.
Correct.
I just, I guess boils down to it sucks to be a doctor in 2024. You can't say shit. If I had a license, I couldn't say many of the things I say.
Well, but why do you think I always say not medical or legal advice? Because I keep
Because you
coming
have
on
something to
going,
lose. Yeah, you have
exactly.
something to lose.
Because I'm trying to draw the distinction between me as a person
Mm-hmm.
and me as a lawyer.
Yeah.
And I have to be careful because I might have to take on a position that I may
Yeah.
not personally agree with.
Mm-hmm.
And that kind of takes you back to the guy who got shot.
Which is trending. I'm not following this so much. Like I think it's tragic. I think there's people like saying, "Oh, they agree with him." There's a
A
large
lot of
number of
people saying they
people
agree with him.
saying they agree, which they're not speaking of separating like the person from the identity, right? Or the ideal. He turned that person who died, I'm forgetting his name. Um Rest in peace. I mean, he represented corporate greed in many people's eyes and like insurance companies greed.
Brian Thompson, by the way.
Brian Thompson. But
Right.
at the end of the day, he's just a person, like,
Yeah.
a
Doing his job.
father doing his job, getting paid very well for it, and part of his metrics indirectly is not paying all claims. And
Yeah, well, that's fair, but
that
it's a
that's more than fair, I think.
well. The point I'm making is I think his metric is not paying all the claims. His metric theoretically is denying wasteful claims.
Well, what they consider wasteful.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And this is where the anger comes from
Oh,
because
I agree. That's my
I
point.
think if you take most normal people, they would
Yeah,
say no, a life murder is murder. But if you say, well, this will scare other healthcare insurance companies from frivolously denying,
but did it?
life-saving
Will it?
treatment.
I'm not sure it
They
will.
they think it will scare enough to where like this is the beginning of
So,
some kind of movement. Violence is the last resort for societal change.
so I agree with you. So I actually put out a post saying that is this the start of the U.S. French Revolution, for lack of a better term?
Right. Right.
Is this eat the rich? My problem is there's a new CEO. Let's say in every single PBM right now. What is that CEO going to say? Like, don't deny? Like, what exactly do you want him to say?
No, they're gonna say we need more security when we go
And
places.
that's the
We need to
thing,
be more discreet. We
which means,
can't.
again, people are going to pay more because those costs just got increased.
My monthly premium just went up another $200, like for
Yeah.
next year. I mean, crazy.
I pay out of my pocket. I don't have any.
So do I.
Yeah, that's my point.
Well, my
As entrepreneurs,
deductible is
we
so
have to.
high, I might as well just be paying cash. It's just basically catastrophic insurance.
Right. And that to me, I think that's what we struggle with is I really like the idea that, you know what, we're going to hold people responsible, but they need to be in a position that they can actually change something.
Right.
You can't put them at the top of a system which they can't, they're literally part of it. They have no way of fixing it. They're
Well,
as much. Go ahead.
this is a testimony to the times we live in. Like the
Everyone's a cog.
when you're relying on vigilante justice because the
Yeah.
people you elected to watch for this,
Yeah.
you feel are corrupted.
Right.
And I mean, you want to have that debate, we can.
But then vote them out, right? And get someone. I mean,
Well, they
Trump's
did. They
fan. Well, that's my point.
supposedly
So
they
Trump's a
did.
fan. I think there are enough people out there who have the same opinion that the PBM system doesn't work as it is, and
Right.
someone's got to go change it.
Right.
In which case, we absolutely should. But killing the CEO and reveling in it and celebrating it,
Right.
I don't know how you got any further outside just doing a murder.
Of course.
But the interesting thing was, I don't know if you said you didn't follow this.
Yeah, I'm not following it too much. Like, there's all kinds of conspiracies. I hate that word, but the guy they got was the wrong guy, and all this kind of stuff. Luigi something.
Yeah, Luigi, but I'm not sure. I mean, he has enough stuff on him that,
Yeah. Yeah.
and he's
Plus,
put out like
probably had
manifestos
some.
and stuff. I don't know
Probably
how
had
much I
like
believe that.
mental issues, and
Yeah,
I mean, to me,
but
it's clear from what I've seen.
but the bigger question, I think, is does it create a sense of copycat murders? And I don't know if you saw, but New York apparently now there are wanted stickers of the top 10 CEOs for like
Yeah.
PBM. And
Yeah.
my point is, today it reminds me of whoever that I think there was a Jewish philosopher who said this, but first they came for X, I was not X. Then they came for Y, I was not Y. Eventually they came for me, and there was no one left to stand up for me. Like,
Right.
who stands up for this?
First they came for
Today
the
they come for the
minorities, then
PBM
they came
CEOs.
for my neighbor, then
Yeah,
they came for me.
yeah. Today you go for the PBM CEOs. Tomorrow you go for the pharma CEOs. Day after tomorrow you go for the doctor's office CEOs. Then you go for the doctors.
For the
Like,
small
what
business.
is that?
Yeah.
How is that okay? It's not, is the point I'm making.
Then you go for the small business mom and pop.
Right.
Like there is a macro war. Well, there was a macro war against those who produce. I think it all boils down to the wealth gap in our country. And that's due to the deficit we're running up, right? And all these government agencies are contributing to that, which is why I think the new administration got voted in to do radical change to this.
I would love to see radical change where you actually have single payer as an option. I'm not saying it needs to be the only option,
Yeah.
but I would love to see me as an entrepreneur. I mean, we're supposed to be the most entrepreneurial country in the world. If that's true, I would love to have something that says your healthcare is not going to cost so much money that
Right.
it's unbelievable.
And we'll
That
be able to do that once we get some of these things under control, hopefully. But did you see Satya Satya Nadella on Bill Gurley pod?
Microsoft. No,
Yeah, I think former Microsoft. He's like Azure now, which I think is a spinoff. But he
no,
said something.
Satya
Is
is still.
Azure like a division of
No, I thought.
Microsoft?
Well, it's Azure is actually a portion of that, but Satya is actually, I think, the CEO
Still
of
CEO.
Microsoft.
Okay, and he's
Yeah,
done a fantastic job. But
yeah.
I mean, he operates like a founder, and he's not, which is crazy. But on the podcast I watched just yesterday, he talked about AI and how he was actually pretty candid about how AI is changing their hiring process. And this applies to every industry, and this applies to this shooter because the wealth gap, if you listen to his answer, you're going to see the wealth gap is going to continue to increase. So if we don't want more of this, we're going to need to figure out what we do for the social safety net.
So two parts. Number one, well, multiple parts. Number one, having Satya speak is an interesting conversation. Actually, I think the CEO of Klarna, I think, came out and said that he hasn't hired anyone in a while because he thinks AI has replaced all of them. I find that to be interesting. Number two, the wealth gap increasing goes to what is it called? Minimum. There's a minimum payment everyone gets, universal basic income.
Yeah.
So that's two, and we'll go into each one. And then number three is this Luigi guy. He's actually from one of the richest families in Maryland. So, like, I think his family owns a bunch of country clubs.
Sure. Like he's the trigger, right? He's the spokesperson for the underprivileged, even though he is privileged. Because that doesn't matter. The facts don't matter. It's his ideals that matter. And that's kind of
it's sort of like the Trump movement, right? It's kind of in that sense, which is maybe you need a billionaire to stand up for those people who have no voice.
Right.
It's a weird analogy, but it's the same basic concept.
Trump fans say he can't be bought, right? And that's why everyone's afraid of him. But Satya said something interesting. He said internally at his organization, a huge company, Microsoft, less headcount. So going forward, because of all these agency AIs, right? AI doing all the stuff that people are doing, less headcount, but the ones that are remaining humans, you pay them a lot more. So to me, translation, wealth gap continues to increase. And
I have a different
frustrations
translation.
continue
I mean, I
to.
agree with you, but I think it's going to create a world of entrepreneurs.
Hopefully. That's
because you have to still eat. What are you going to do?
Yeah. Or the gig economy.
Yeah, the gig economy is going to continue, but the gig economy only continues. Like, for example, Tesla's already looking at the trucks, the cyber trucks, which would be a major change. I don't mean the cyber truck as in the small van. I'm talking about replacing
the semis,
the semis and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, my ignorance is coming in here. Is semi the small truck still? Because I'm talking about like the caravans,
No,
like the
no, the
huge
big
ass,
rigs. Yeah, the
right? The
18
big
wheelers.
rigs. Thank you. That's
Yeah.
what I was talking about. But to me, if that happens, you can't work Uber anymore. What does that
Right.
gig economy look like in a world where there are no gigs or very few gigs?
The gig economy is people have to be adaptable and resilient, and they have to be willing to upgrade their skills. And we had this talk on another pod where,
Okay,
okay,
man,
if we're
you
gonna
and I have talked about
slash,
everything.
yeah, if we're gonna slash government workers, like, okay, there's some percentage of those that are entrepreneurs looking to create efficiencies and looking to be adaptable, but the majority have been trained and incentivized to just do as you need to do. We don't care too much about outcomes. In California, they didn't even track the metrics for homeless reduction because they had no incentive to do that. If we actually reduced the homeless population, we could get our budget slashed next year.
Here I'm
So
gonna
these are
share.
if you've been trained in that system, how are you gonna go work for yourself now? Like it's a totally different skill set now.
Um, I hear you. I'm trying to show you a screen. The
Yeah, let's look at it.
Give me a second. I'm gonna try to share it.
Helen says the BTBs love to count every dose of vaccine in that count. The earlier Hep B is given reduces the incidence of liver cancer if exposed in the future. What is BTB, Helen?
I actually don't know.
The BTBs love to count every dose of vaccine in that count. Build Back Better? No, that's BBB.
Can you see this?
Build Back Better is over, guys. That didn't work.
So this was actually today's news. So Biden today signed paperwork.
Wait, you have a pop-up. Hold on. What?
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out how to stop the pop-up. Give me a sec.
Okay.
And,
Can you sue them? You can just get that fixed quickly.
I really wonder how many people you want me to sue.
I'm working on someone right now.
So this is today's news, I believe. No, I'm wrong. This is actually no. This is union.
Thousands of government employees. Wait, what is the headline? Thousands of government employees land deal to continue telework with Biden admin appointee.
So the idea is that there's a new contract that will allow them to stay hybrid until 2029.
Okay. I mean,
Um,
this is all contributes to the debt and wealth inequality. And we
yeah.
can't do UBI. I think UBI is worthless until we stop inflation.
I don't know why. I'm not sure I necessarily agree with Musk's opinion that everyone needs to show up everywhere. On the other hand, I also don't think that you need to have a contract that says you don't. I think it should depend on the job. It should depend on what you're doing, etc.
Sure,
Um,
there's nuance, but when you're starting something new, you got to start strict and then loosen up the
Possibly,
belt.
but I think this is the point you are making, which is I think there's already some data out there that says that people who choose remote don't get promoted as often, and people are saying I'm okay with that.
Right.
But I think they're also the first people to let go is the other information that comes out.
Of course.
And
If
the
you're not
problem
an
is,
adaptable, flexible, I mean, to work is to some extent stress because value add to a economic society is energy put in to prevent disorder, prevent entropy. Like that's a stressful endeavor to actually produce something of value. It
yeah,
doesn't happen passively, or else the universe would be fine. Like everything would be perfect, right? And what's the purpose of life? Like I think a little bit of it is to struggle and to
man,
overcome obstacles.
they're really like milking this whole Marcus Aurelius thing. The purpose of life is to struggle.
It kind of is like a
You're
little.
stoic through and through.
You don't want to get caught up in it, but if you live a life with no struggle, like what's the purpose? And a lot of these government agencies have been operating like everything's fine. There's no sense of urgency. We're just going to print more. And we'll get our bigger budget next year. And that's what's causing everything to go up. And it's what's causing, I don't know why that shooter did what he did, but he felt like he was representing in some vigilante justice way millions of Americans who are getting denied and because of lack of money.
Right. I think people are right to feel upset, and I think people are right to go, I've tried everything. So I hear all of those things. I still can't stand and sign off on murder. That's just
Of
unacceptable
course
to me.
not. Of course not.
People are willing to sign off on that, going,
I think they're signing
I'll
off on the ideal that the system's corrupt, and if it took murder to get our message across,
But did it though? Did the message go any further than it always does?
no, but it's irrelevant. Like they wanted to be heard, and they Luigi's like basically a martyr for many people
Sure,
in that
sure.
regard.
But here's what's going to happen: you're going to have congressional inquiries, and
Mhm.
something's going to be done about it. That's really what the
Yeah,
best possible scenario is. Except you're in the middle of congressional inquiries on the topic already. That's literally what's happening as we speak.
right.
So obviously, either people didn't know, Luigi in this case didn't know, other people don't know, or they don't
But they
care.
don't care. Yeah,
Right.
they don't care because when you think there's no more hope or potential, like you have violence. That's what's left.
And I think that's my worry. I think the idea that um, we're not giving people the opportunity to address their concerns. I think
Yeah.
we need a better place for those conversations to be had, and we just don't get that.
Well, that's how we started the show. I mean, they're seemingly unrelated topics, but a lot of doctors feel like they can't on a different topics. But
I know, I'm following. It's a nice pullback.
we say we want all kinds of things, and then when people speak their mind, we're like, nah, you can't say that. You know, there's too much money around this. No, like this board is gonna say no, or you're gonna get banned. Like YouTube's gonna shut you off.
Well, YouTube does. There's a risk of that.
I've gotten 2 strikes
Have you? For what?
on YouTube for reading peer-reviewed articles on lipid nanoparticles.
Really?
Yeah, misinformation twice, and very strongly worded warnings that my channel will be terminated. So I can't really have like even this one. I mean, my 2 strikes are gone. They had like 90 days.
Oh, is that
But
right?
like
Okay.
they were going back in like 3 years ago and stuff. So I
Wow.
was scared. I was like, shoot, they're gonna find more than 3. They could find anything. And that's the concern. It's like the nanny state slash big corporate connections
Yeah.
to do their dirty work are stifling conversation. And we hope that changes with the new regime.
Do you think it will, or it causes a different change? Maybe some voices do need to shut up, and I'll tell you which voice I'm thinking of. I'll genuinely give you this story. I think I told you this story.
It's not nice talking about Chris like that.
I like Sober. Let me be clear.
Everyone likes Sober.
Having said that, I there was a place at the beach I visit, and
One of your many beach houses.
The one. And one of my neighbors literally came at me with an axe because he thought I was supporting what's the word I'm looking for? He said he supports Israel. I was walking my dog. This has nothing.
Wait, he came at you with an axe?
With an axe. Literally with an axe. Physically walked to me with an axe in his hand.
But like ready to swing? Or?
Yeah. I mean, what else do you do with an axe?
Do you ever talk to him before?
No. That was the first time ever.
You ever seen him before?
No.
Wow.
So
what are you trying to say? Like, if he had a YouTube channel, he'd probably get taken down.
No. If he gets a YouTube channel and he comes out there going, take Darshan out. I tried to. Some voices do need to shut up.
Of course, those are calls to violence.
Okay.
That's different than debate.
So my point is, I'm agreeing with you. I think debate is natural. Debate is good. I also think that if you didn't have debate, we would still be talking about the 5 ethers and stuff. There's ether and like 5 elements. Like medicine evolves. So even what we know does need to be challenged because that's how medicine evolves. Having said that,
of course,
there are crackpot theories. And
that's going to come with the territory, yeah.
Absolutely. But the question is, not every crackpot theory needs to get yeah, thanks, Alicia.
And not every valid concern needs to be lumped into crackpot theory.
Agreed, but how do you tell the difference?
I don't know. Whose job is that to do, actually? That's a really much bigger question.
Repeat that last sentence to me. Whose job it is to
Whose
what?
job is it to police that? Because
Well, isn't that the job of your peers to police that?
yeah, I think X
Isn't
has it right with the community notes.
so? Hold on. I want to make sure I get this right. You think it is the job of peers to police you. You think that certain information is dangerous, and it's okay to police that. Isn't that exactly what the Board of Medicine is doing in the analysis, where someone's saying, "We think."
Yes, but selectively. They do it very selectively.
Okay, go
It's
on.
very biased.
But that's not the question you raised.
It's a pay-to-play system, whereas
Why would the Board
pure
of Medicine
community,
be paid to play? Explain that to me.
the funding they receive, the fees, the dues they receive,
But they
they
get that
get
from everyone.
right. But the pharmaceutical companies are also part of that revenue. Huge part.
No. What are
Yeah,
you talking about?
for the boards.
On what base? I've not, this is the first time hearing it. I'm not aware of that being true.
So from
Tell
the
me. Tell me more.
university system and on,
Mhm.
the curriculum that's pushed is the current narrative, which is
No, we're
trust
talking
science.
board. We're talking Board of Medicine. That's different
Yeah,
from
like Board of
university.
Internal Medicine, for example. It's just
Okay,
an
sure.
extension of that. It's a continuation of that.
No, there's a difference between a licensing board and the
Yeah, yeah,
actual.
like a Board of Internal Medicine or
Uh-huh.
like a board certified psychiatrist or whatever.
Sure. No, they have an opinion. Okay. I think I understand your point. The point you're making is pharmaceutical companies have will fund certain types of research and provide that information. That's the point you're making, and that may be
Correct.
sent out through their journals. That's the
Correct.
point you're making.
Correct. And
Okay,
they're also the same ones that are sponsors. I mean, I have a
that's fair.
on a
That's fair.
very small scale, conference, right?
Yeah.
We don't have nefarious plans. I don't
Just so
think
everyone hears, what's the name of the conference then?
saveoursites.com.
There you go.
Yeah, by the way, get your tickets. Darshan's gonna be speaking,
I am going to be speaking.
and it'll be fun. We're gonna hang
I'm
out a lot.
excited.
Maybe do a in-person pod. We've only done
That'd be
one of
awesome.
those. We've only done one of those in our lives
We've
together.
only met each other. Is it once or twice? I can't remember.
Twice.
Twice? Okay.
Yeah. You're much taller than you look on video. I was like, whoa, that's Darshan? Jeez. Point is, it's selectively done, whereas something like community notes is done by the masses of individuals with no real skin in the game. Like they're just
So
users
you
of
prefer the mass ignorant opining over the select not knowledgeable?
yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, because they're not mass ignorant. And like just like the argument for vaccines, if you do enough patients, you can have placebo. Okay, if you have enough people policing this community notes, all the lunatics get
Oh
weeded
no,
out.
you're talking about the long tail and stuff. I'm following you.
It's
But
easier to
that's sort of
trust
the equivalent
them.
of having enough monkeys type, you'll get Shakespeare.
Not quite. Have you used community notes? It's
I
actually
have
like
not.
I've read very divisive articles where I start getting, and I'm aware of this, I start getting a visceral reaction.
Sure.
Oh no, that's fucking horrible. And then I read the community notes. This is taken out of context. Da, 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 da. And if you want to read more, it's like a whole 3 paragraphs on it.
I gotta look at this community notes. I don't even know what the.
And I'm like, thank God for this community notes. And they do it on both sides. There's no political agenda.
No. I I'm sick of everyone making everything about politics. It's not about politics. It should be about right information versus wrong information.
Everything is because information is precursor to action.
Ooh, that's a good line.
In the beginning, there was the Word, and the Word was God. Right?
I don't know. Which one?
Well, that's the first open to the Bible, I think. It's been a while since I read.
I'm joking. Yeah.
In the beginning, there was the Word, and the Word was God. Words, right? Language.
Word up.
And now, what's technology doing? Learned language models. Like, we operate on language. Even machines.
It's an interesting theory, but I think I go back to your statement
with no words, and words are symbolic of thoughts.
No,
Oh, that's
You
Siri?
yeah, that
Hey
was
Siri.
my
Hey Siri, turn off
stop
Darshan's
it.
light.
Stop it.
Hey Siri, let's sue someone.
Let's sue
Do you
someone.
have the shortcut for that on your phone yet?
Oh.
Uh,
Oh my god.
this is a great one, man. I know you got a hard stop. Deep
Yeah,
Mary
this
says,
is a fun
nice.
one.
I agree. Words are very powerful. Words are symbol of thoughts, right? Which, like thoughts, we
If
get
if
thoughts all
word
the time.
if words are the precursor to action, which is what you said, and I like that line to be clear. If words are the
And
precursor to
they and
action,
words are
m-
further downstream than thoughts, which are just like these superposition,
sure.
like whatever. My daily inner dialogue is insane, bro. Like, but if I'm gonna talk, I can't be saying all that shit. I gotta say something that is gonna do something to you for some reason, or none, maybe. But there's a purpose.
My point is machine learning gets past words and just goes into actions. So is machine learning ahead of the word?
Machine learning still takes language. Like it uses
Not
language and
necessarily.
predicts.
It sort of
Well,
acts,
it,
reacts, and learns and adapts.
correct. But it's using like structured data.
So you're counting that as words. Okay, fair
Yeah,
enough.
even math. I mean, all that language. Because otherwise, we just have internal dialogue. Like, what good is that? You're not gonna build any pyramids with that shit. You need to have.
That's called magic.
Yeah, we can get into the Tower of Babel and how. What? That's 3 more hours. Like
How
language,
do we get into like religiousness right now?
because all things lead back to the
To
truth.
Yahweh?
The truth. I'm not religious, by the way, but I do believe in God. There's
Whole other
gotta be
conversation to have.
There's gotta be something, man. What are your thoughts on this as we wrap up? Is there or
What are
is
my
there
thoughts
not
on
a God?
God?
Yeah.
My personal opinion, this no one's ever asked me this. I'm gonna give you my personal opinion.
This is a short.
This is a short. You know what? I think the closest thing we live in is what the Matrix is, which is we're basically in a video game, and you can run the video game multiple times, and to the extent that God is watching, he doesn't really give a shit. We're basically sim characters in a video game. Ooh, I like that.
I like the acronym WATCH: words, actions, thoughts, character, habits.
That's pretty
Yeah,
good.
it makes
Um,
who you are.
but you put thoughts after actions. I really wish you'd put the thoughts before.
Yeah, that's probably so. It have, but the word would make no sense at
I
that
feel
point.
like character should be the beginning of that because
Maybe
your
it's not in
character will
order.
decide your.
Maybe it's not in order.
Yeah, hopefully it's not in order.
So
Doesn't
you
work
believe
otherwise.
in like a kind of simulation theory kind of thing. I think
Yeah,
I'm with you,
I
man.
believe in the simulation theory.
I think
I
I'm
think
with you
Musk
too.
came out with that as well. Actually,
Right,
it's supported by Hinduism. That's kind of what Hinduism says. It says that
right.
we're living in a simulation, basically.
Yeah. Which may not
Nothing's
be
real.
exactly like the Matrix, but it might be something like more organic.
It may not be.
Hmm.
I mean, the closer you examine reality, the quicker it falls apart.
Yeah.
But
When you get
um,
into like quantum entanglement and things like that.
all of that stuff, yeah.
The observer is what matters, I think, and that's consciousness.
So I think you're going to what's called Heisenberg's uncertainty principle.
Hmm.
Today, it's the second time this conversation's come up today. Which
Wow, and it's very early. The day's
I
still young.
know, I know. But Heisenberg's uncertainty principle basically says that if you try to measure something, you affect the something, if you will, in this
Sure,
case.
yeah. Double slit lamp theory experiment, and you know,
Yeah,
photons behave as particles only out when an observer is there. I mean, it's crazy.
it's a very very like interesting thing. But
And thoughts are
you
the
have a hard
same.
stop, don't you?
Thoughts are the same. Back to just to close it. When you pick it, thoughts are there, just superposition. When you pick one and speak it to a word, right? That's the act of like observing. Like I acknowledge it's there. I'm putting it out.
Yeah,
So now it must have its equal somewhere else, like its opposite. Anyways,
I love. Today was a good conversation, a fun
gotta
one.
gotta go chew some mushrooms. Um,
Ayahuasca. Have you ever done it?
nah, no, I've done mushrooms though.
I've heard good things about ayahuasca. I've never done it, never taken drugs. But again,
I'm
we're
a
going
little
back to the conversation you and I had, which is I think Steve Jobs said that Bill Gates should do drugs, not the other way around.
right. We got a hater. We got a hater. It's okay. Everyone go follow Darshan. He's very tall.
He's very
Like,
tall.
subscribe, comment, share. Bye bye.